So that was a pretty brutal week last week for the Bulls. Not the kind of week you want to see as we head closer to the postseason. And because the Bulls lost all 3 of their games on that West Coast trip, it's going to make this week all the more critical as it relates to their playoff positioning, especially now that they have fallen all the way to the 5th seed, and the games aren't going to get any easier with a packed week of games ahead for the Bulls with a lot of traveling. So it's nice the Bulls had a whole weekend off, but they have 4 games in this upcoming week, 2 of which are back-to-back starting tonight with their only game at home against the Toronto Raptors, who have been playing really well recently and are just 1.5 games behind the Bulls at this point for that 7th spot, which is crazy to say. Then you make the quick trip up north on Tuesday to face the Milwaukee Bucks. This will be the first time Alex Caruso will see Grayson Allen on the court since he was still out of the lineup the last time the Bucks came to town. Then the Bulls will travel to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans on Thursday, who have also been playing somewhat better basketball recently as they are fighting for that last play-in spot in the West. And the Bulls will close out their week on Saturday, traveling to Cleveland to take on the Cavs, another team they are fighting against for playoff seeding, as the Cavs are currently a half game back behind the Bulls in the standings. So in today's video, I'll be going over the keys to each of these games, things to be looking out for based on the players that will be available, and of course my predictions for the week, which will be wildly off as they have been of late. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So the Bulls open the week currently 41-29 at 5th in the East, and with 4 games in front of them this week, 2 of which are teams right next to them in this East standings in the Raptors and the Cavs. This has to be one of the most important weeks for the Bulls this season. They have to execute in winning these games, because the last thing you want is to fall into the play-in territory and risk even being bumped out of the playoffs entirely, which I don't think will happen, but it's something that could be a possibility if the Bulls come out flat like they have been in recent games. Now let's start with tonight's game against the Toronto Raptors, which is the only game at home this week and is needed because the Bulls have been playing quite a few games on the road recently and are going to be on a long stretch of road games after this game against the Raptors. And we all know the Bulls have not been a great team playing on the road this season. They are 16-19 on the road while 25-10 at home. That's why securing home court advantage in the playoffs is going to be ever more critical. Now, the Raptors have been rolling. Yes, they lost to the Lakers the other night in OT, but aside from that, they've been playing really well. And you know, for a team that was thought to likely miss the play-in at the start of the season, they have since been winning consistently and have moved their way up in the East standings to currently being 7th in the East, and they have one of the easiest schedules to close out the season. This will be their 4th and final time that the Bulls play the Raptors. They won the first 2 and lost to the Raptors in OT in the last game that they met on February 3rd. And we've talked about in every weekly preview video in which the Bulls were going up against the Raptors, the Bulls do not match up well against this team. The Raptors have a ton of size and length, are a great defensive team in the front court with how scrappy and athletic they are. OG Anunoby is the only guy that will likely be out of the lineup for this game, but the Raptors still have Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, and that's not even factoring in their guard depth with Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., who always seems to torch the Bulls. Like every time the Bulls have played these guys, they have always been close games, and the Raptors have had guys out of the lineup, whether it be VanVleet or Siakam. And now, this team is healthy for the most part, meaning the Raptors are. So what should we be looking out for in this one? Well, one, how do you handle the Raptors defense and aggression in the front court, because they'll out-hustle you on the glass if you're not being on top of your game. They'll protect the rim better than most teams in the league, and they'll fight for those loose balls and beat you on the pick and roll with how long and athletic guys like Siakam and Boucher are. Again, all areas where the Bulls have struggled this season, cleaning up the glass and defending the pick and roll. That should be priority number 1 in practice, is making sure you're not letting the Raptors front court destroy this team in the paint. Then, of course, the other piece is ensuring you're not letting a guy like Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. heat up. Gary Trent has been lighting up the Bulls from outside this season, and VanVleet, who is now an all-star, has turned into one of the better two-way players in the league and is a great floor general for the Raptors. Thus, again, big assignments for Ayo and Zach Lavine to make sure they're focused on the defensive end and guarding the perimeter. Then the Bulls will face the Bucks on Tuesday in a back-to-back, and of course this always is going to be a challenging matchup when you're going against Giannis, who in my opinion is the best player in the NBA right now. This is yet another team that has a ton of size in the front court, dominance with guys like Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez is finally back for the Bucks, which gives them another big that can actually space the floor for them. Don't forget about Bobby Portis, who's having an incredible season. Like, this isn't going to be an easy one for guys like Vucevic, Tristan Thompson, and Patrick Williams, again, who will now be back in the lineup, which is great. And I guess I should say Javonte Green, who will likely be getting a lot of the minutes at the 4, since Patrick Williams will likely be eased into the lineup over this coming week. And yes, the fact that we have Patrick Williams for these upcoming games against the Raptors and the Bucks, I mean, going up against these two teams with their size, we are certainly going to need a guy like Patrick Williams with his length and defense. He's not going to be incredibly impactful right out of the gate, but even just having some of that additional size is going to be a big help for the Bulls. I'm sure it's going to be a bit of getting used to for Patrick, getting back into the flow of an NBA game since he's been out for so long, and he'll likely be on a minutes restriction, but even just to give the Bulls a little more size is going to be very much needed. Now, for this game against the Bucks, I mean, as scary and deep of a team as they are, they're the defending champs. The last 2 games in which the Bulls played against them, the Bulls held their own. Like, for all the top teams that the Bulls have lost to throughout this season, they looked the best against the Bucks and could have walked away with wins in either of those games. I think the main thing, of course, is how do you stop Giannis, which you can't, other than sending him to the foul line, which the Bulls did a ton in the last game, and Giannis shot very poorly from the line, going 10 for 19, so it kind of worked. But then you also have to watch out for Jrue Holiday, who lit up the Bulls in the 4th quarter and allowed the Bucks to take over and win that game. Ayo has got to be all over Holiday, which I say that like Ayo did poorly on Holiday last time. He still defended him well. It's just that Jrue Holiday is a very savvy veteran and Ayo's a rookie. Like, sometimes you have to realize we ask too much of Ayo, and he's stepped up in big ways while Lonzo Ball has been out. And then finally, I'd like to see the Bulls maybe have a hard foul or 2 on Grayson Allen. I don't think we will, as it was pretty clear that they had kind of moved on from that the last time these two teams played. And even based on what they were saying in the post-game interviews, it'll be interesting to see how Caruso is with Allen in the lineup. To be honest, I would kind of prefer Caruso not do anything too crazy to where he would be kicked out or suspended, because we're going to need Caruso. Maybe send someone like Tony Bradley in there for a couple minutes and give him a nice shove. That would work. Then the Bulls will play the Pelicans on Thursday. This is really a game that the Bulls just have to win. Yes, the Pelicans have looked better since the beginning of the season when they started out 1-15, and they want that final play-in spot, so they're going to play hard. And I believe Brandon Ingram is still likely going to be out for this game. I know he was going to be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days from March 9th, but he's still out of the lineup at the time of this recording, but we'll see if that changes by Thursday. Devontae Graham is also day-to-day, and of course Zion Williamson has also been out all season, but it's possible he might even be returning in the next week or so. That being said, though, CJ McCollum has been balling for the Pelicans ever since being traded there. Dude has been averaging over 26 points per game on insane efficiency and has also been one of their best playmakers. Like, McCollum is playing at an all-star level since joining the Pelicans. Again, another tough assignment for Ayo, as I imagine he'll be on McCollum rather than someone like Zach LaVine. And then, of course, Jonas Valanciunas. I mean, that'll be a good matchup for Vucevic. For Vuce, he's done better against guys like Valanciunas over other big men in the league who are a bit more nimble with their footwork. So with all the injuries to the Pelicans, the fact that Patrick Williams is going to be back into the lineup, this has got to be a game in which the Bulls dominate. These are the type of teams you have to beat when you're closing out a hard schedule. Then the Bulls will close out the week against the Cavs. We just did see the Cavs recently. It was a pretty impressive win for the Bulls at home, in which the Bulls, particularly Ayo and Caruso, did a great job at locking down Darius Garland. That will be the name of the game this time around as well. Vucevic also did surprisingly well against the rookie Evan Mobley, which, same thing, need to make sure you're being strong in the post because Mobley is an excellent defender and rim protector. This is another team that has been suffering from injuries to some of their best players like Jarrett Allen being out of the lineup, and of course Colin Sexton has been out all season. Lauri Markkanen was out the last time around, but it looks like he'll be back in the lineup for this game. Again, another big that can space the floor that the Bulls are going to need to keep an eye on. This will likely be a Javonte Green type of assignment, or even Patrick Williams. The Bulls have to take advantage of the fact that Jarrett Allen is out. Double team Garland, make sure he doesn't get dribble drive penetration to the hoop that he is so good at doing. And also, just remember, this is a big game for the Bulls as it relates to their standings in the East, with the Cavs right behind them. Because for the Cavs, I'm sure they're viewing this as an opportunity to pick up a full game on a team that is right behind them, or I should say right in front of them in the standings. The Bulls should be viewing this as a way to get more separation from the Cavs so as not to slip to the 6th seed. As for my predictions for this week, well, Last week, I was a bit too optimistic, which I generally am because I'm biased. I always think that my team is going to win more than they probably are going to, but I still think this is going to be a struggle for the Bulls this week. They're still slumping, and they're going to be going against teams that are simply wanting it more than they are heading into the playoffs. And so I think the Bulls will likely go 2-2 this week, losing their first 2 games against the Raptors and the Bucks, and beating the Pelicans and Cavs. I think the Raptors game will be a hard-fought battle, but I just really don't like the matchups in that one, and the Raptors are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and especially now that they're fully healthy. And because it's the Bucks, the Bulls are playing in a back-to-back, and it's on the road, I see them falling in that game, but I think beating the Pelicans and the Cavs should be feasible. And really, these are going to be must-win games if the Bulls lose to the Raptors and Bucks, as that will be another 5-game losing streak. And with how closely things are right now between the Cavs and the Raptors and the Bulls in the East standings, you got to win these games. Anyway, what are your predictions for this week? How do you think the Bulls will do in these 4 games? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.